I'm gonna show you the worst investment that you can possibly make in all of Punta Cana, and I'll show you exactly why. And it all begins with an Instagram reel many people sent me that I'm gonna share with you, and then we'll break it down. It is in Spanish, but I'll do my best to translate.
No compres una propiedad para inversión sin antes hacer este cálculo. Te lo explico con números reales. Un
she's
cliente
going to show us the
compró
real
un apartamento
numbers.
en Vista Cana por
Client bought
$150,000 y esto fue lo
apartment
que
at
pasó.
Vista Cana
Nos
for
apoyamos
$150.
en plataformas como Airbnb y RDNA para
They help them
saber cuál es
analyze
el
using
precio
all
por
these different
noche en propiedades
platforms.
similares a esta. En este caso, nos arrojó un precio por
So it's
noche de
$150,000 condo. They're saying $125
por una
a night
media de 20 noches
for 20
al mes.
nights.
Entonces, $125 la noche por 20 noches nos arroja un
And the math is
total de
$2,500 in gross a month.
al mes. Pero también tenemos que restarle los gastos. En este caso,
So the
si
expenses
contratas
that you would
una compañía
have.
de administración hotelera sería un 25% aproximadamente. El 25% de $2,500 sería
So she's doing 25% for management, which,
aparte tenemos también $150 de mantenimiento y $200 de servicio como
she's got $150 for maintenance, $200 for other services like electric,
sería un total
communications, so on.
$975.
$975.
Entonces, los $2,500
And expenses.
menos $975, que son los servicios, me arroja un total de $1,525.
So you net $1,525 a month.
$1,525
She multiplies that by 12
12 meses, me
to get
arroja un total de
$18,300.
$18,300 al año. $18,300 entre el precio de la
Divide
propiedad,
that by
que serían
$150,000.
$150,000, te arroja un total de 0.12 por 100, te arroja un total de 12%. Y esta sería tu rentabilidad anual. Pero ojo, no
So it's 12% annual return is what she's projecting. All right, let's break that down a bit. First of all, this is actually a really well done video. I love seeing somebody break it down and show you how and why. And in addition, what I didn't show you at the end of the video, she says, hey, look, this is subject to change. A lot changes in the area. These are just projections. So to me, that's very honest. She said $150,000 for an apartment in Vista Cana. While that might be possible for a pre-construction property, that's not most of the inventory here. In other words, I'd be a little bit leery of finding a place for $150, especially one that's going to rent for $125 a night. Prices are just higher. It is what it is. Second is the $125 a night. If it is $150,000, that must be a one-bedroom apartment. If that's the case, $125 a night is a little on the high side from what I see, probably closer to $110, $115 max, but let's go with it. This next number is the one I'm most concerned with, and that is the assumption of 20 nights per month. Now, they're saying that they went through AirDNA, which is an Airbnb site that shows you all the data for the area. But honestly, Punta Cana in general is like 46 to 49% occupancy, and Vista Cana is even lower. So if we just went with 40%, that would be 12 nights. Not 20. And certainly if you did get 20 nights, that would be in the highest of high seasons, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But 12 days times 125, that would be $1,500 top line revenue. All right, for expenses, she has a 25% management fee, which I think is reasonable, $150 for maintenance, which is an HOA fee. Just so you know, when you're buying here, they say maintenance, that's your HOA. That was a point of confusion when we moved here, because we were paying the HOA and then we had to pay for all these other maintenance items like pool and lawn. And we were like, no, we're paying for maintenance. So just be aware of that language. And granted, that was in a house, a villa, which is also what they call a house here. And then lastly, $200 for everything else. I honestly think that's a little bit light. $200 is probably going to be close to your electric bill, especially if you are getting 20 nights occupancy. And then you have Wi-Fi and other things on top of it. And if you're here in Vista Cana, where I'm sitting right now, there's no cell service or very little. So you need good Wi-Fi, you got to pay for that, $50 to $80 a month. But even if we keep it at $200, let's do that. So if I throw this up on screen, if it's $1,500 that you're grossing a month times 25% management fee, that's $375 plus the $200 plus the $150 is $725 in expenses. So if we do her math, $1,500 minus $725, that's $775 a month, times 12 is $9,300, divide that by $150,000, and that's a 6% return. Literally half. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even think it's that high. Not in Vista Cana and not Airbnb. Look, Vista Cana is an amazing community, and they've really hit their stride. They've found their identity, and that is they have become a residential community of the future for the Punta Cana area. It is centrally located, meaning it's downtown, not near any beaches and without beach access. And while it has some beautiful communities like this one, called Pueblito Caribeño. Okay, that leaf blower was driving me nuts. Where was I? the worst investment. So as I said, Vista Cana's found an identity as a residential community. There's another community here called Cap Cana, which could take a lesson from Vista Cana. Vista Cana rallied around their new school called Ashton School. When you enter, there's a pharmacy, a dentist, even a bakery that you can use. And directly across from that, they're building a mall called La Nube, and I'm told a La Sirena grocery store. Again, built to live. Where I am right now, let me show you, is this playground, this beautiful little playground for kids to play on because again, it's being built as a community. There's also a ton of unfinished projects here that are well on their way, like the one I'm standing in right now called Paseo del Sendero. It's one of the more popular projects. The developer, which is Paseo del Sendero, seems to be doing a great job. They're also building that pueblito I showed you with the really cool, colorful homes. But as more and more and more of these projects come online, and most of them are very similar in look and feel, Airbnb-ing in this community, I just don't think is a good strategy. Think about it this way. The number one asset of the Dominican Republic is a beach. And while there are one, soon two, artificial beaches built here in Vista Cana, without beach access, visitors don't want to spend time here. They want to be on or near the beach. I mean, look, you tell me, right where I am right now, houses like this and others as I walk by, this is a place when you come to the Caribbean that you're going to want to stay in and visit? I mean, maybe, but not likely. And especially when all of them look very similar. You might want to live here, and that makes sense. My wife and I considered, do we want to move to Vista Cana because of what it is becoming and what it's already become? Let me be very clear. The worst investment is not Vista Cana. The worst investment is Airbnb in Vista Cana. Not because there's anything wrong with Vista Cana. In fact, I think everything's right with it. They've clearly identified what they're going to be going forward. But there's a better strategy, and that's long-term renting. Let's do some of the math on that. So a house like that one on the corner right there is a 3 to 4 bedroom villa in a nice community inside of Vista Cana. That would likely rent for somewhere in the range of $1,500 a month. Now remember all those expenses that we saw on the other property where you're only going to get maybe $1,500 a month Airbnb, but you also need to pay for the maintenance or HOA fee, and you need to pay for all of the expenses. Well, on that property, you don't need to pay for either. The tenant will pay for those. So now when you do the math on what's likely a $240,000 property, let's break that down. That'll be $1,500 a month, all expenses on the tenant, $18,000 a year against $240,000. It's about 7.5%. Now, of course, there's going to be some expenses on that, so 7.5% is probably a little bit lower. But again, as I said before, that 12% that was quoted in the video, I believe is at least doubly high, and I even think 6% is too high. In fact, I can tell you this, sophisticated investors that actually own property here, they would tell you that the return, just cash flow, for Airbnb in this community is somewhere between 3 and 4%. In and of itself, that's lower than a bond. So why buy it all? There's two reasons. Number one, to me, is the best reason. You want to move here. Be that now or eventually. Maybe it's retirement. Maybe it's your family that you want to move and raise here. I've met so many people who have told me that they've moved here with their kids because they just didn't want to raise their kids in the United States or Canada anymore. I get that. Guilty. But if the idea is, hey, I want to own something there that somebody else is paying for now because we're going to move in 3, 5, 7 years, great reason to buy. Number two is appreciation value. I have something called the DR Inner Circle. It's a monthly membership community, very actively engaged, talking about living here, moving here. We share ideas, we share recommendations, and there's even discounted legal fees and discounted insurance by being a member of that. And every week I do a Q&A session on Zoom and often bring in an expert guest. A recent expert guest was a consulting firm doing a ton of data study on Punta Cana and the Dominican Republic real estate in general. And they are projecting around a 7% annualized increase in value on properties here, which means you're investing as an appreciation play, not as a cash flow play. That makes sense to me. But the other thing you need to consider is what should you buy if you're going to live in it or that's going to appreciate the most? And it's probably not the tiny $150,000 apartment. Even more so, to long-term rent in a community built now around a school and other amenities, who wants a one-bedroom apartment? My take on this market is that the cheap stuff, the oh my God, that's so inexpensive, I could buy that stuff, is the scariest stuff to buy. The quality of the construction, the demand for that in the future, and the demand in the short term if you need to rent it in any capacity is going to be very limited. I want to be really clear. All of this is just my take. Like the lady who did that incredible video at the beginning, she said it at the end. Look, things change. I could be completely wrong. And what I would love is if you are investing here in Vista Cana and you're Airbnb-ing, tell me I'm wrong. I want to be wrong. I want to be so overly conservative and then learn from many people like, no, Vista Cana is hot for Airbnb. Everything I'm seeing, everything I own there's got 20, 30 days a month. They're being booked. Tell me I'm wrong. I want to know that below. My thought is though, I think I'm more right than wrong on this. All right, back in this area. I really like these. I like this little pueblito caribeño. In fact, I think I'm going to film some exclusive footage just for the DR Inner Circle here to show you around. I'm going to have to break in a little bit. That's okay. I don't think they'll mind. By the way, if you're interested in joining the Inner Circle, the website summarizing it is down below in the caption. And if you click more and go and see all of the caption, you'll see a whole bunch of links to different referrals I can make for you, like a realtor and attorney, a home inspector, a mortgage broker, and more. Feel free to use any of them, but trust your gut in working with anybody, whether I referred them or not. And just know this, if I refer them and you use them, they'll likely pay me some sort of referral fee. All right, a second post was sent to me. It's this one here, advertising $69,000 apartments here in Vista Cana. And the obvious question is like, hey, do you think this is a good deal? And here's what I'll say. I have no idea, but the hair on the back of my neck goes up when I see that price point. Look, the rule exists here. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. That doesn't mean a scam. I would never accuse anybody of that unless it's proven. But I go back to what I said before. If I'm saying to you that 150,000 is hard to find here, then I'd be really curious exactly what you get for 69,000. Now, what I think it is, and I've heard this from a few realtors I know and trust, is 69,000 is the starting price and a special price for a 28 square meter. That's about 300 square foot suite, as they call it. Suite is studio. And then the price goes up from there for a 1-bed, a 2-bed, a 3-bed, so on. Also, thanks to a member of my Inner Circle, I've learned that this specific project isn't quite yet approved by Vista Cana. So the sale is truly like pre-construction. I don't know the realtors. I don't know anything about them. I'm sure they're great. I have no idea. This isn't an indictment of them. This isn't calling anybody out. This is simply me saying, if I see a price point so far below the average for the area, or not even the average, so far below the low, I would be inconsistent if I said, no, yeah, hey, that's possible. Everything I've said before on any video I've ever done is to be mindful of the low price stuff. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think this is on Vista Cana. They've done a great job of developing their identity. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, but Leaf Blower Guy is back. I swear, he's like, let me screw with the gringo. It's actually a different leaf blower guy. Maybe they're coordinating, but let me move. Vista Cana has claimed an identity as a future premier residential community, and a lot of people are already moving here. Look, I meet new people moving here because they say, hey, Jamie, you were part of the reason I moved here. Like, you showed us around and I got way more comfortable because of your content with the idea of living in Punta Cana. And then once I explored the area, the best value, price, amenities, and community we saw was Vista Cana for us. I can think of at least 6 people I know that moved here to Vista Cana, and many more will. So to me, that means Vista Cana needs to say, okay, well, if we've claimed an identity and we're gonna be a premier destination, residential, I gotta show you this, because they're coming at me now. Look at this. Guy 1 is over here. See him? He's coming for me with his leaf blower. Guy 2, right there. They're trolling me, people. They're trolling me. Anyway, I think Vista Cana needs to say, we won't allow any community to be under a certain price. We won't allow marketing that undermines the value of the total community. This is what Punta Cana Village has done really, really well, and Punta Cana Resort. So I'm a big believer in all things that Gruber Punta Cana does, who own the village, the resort, the airport. But if anyone from Vista Cana is watching, that would be my recommendation to you. Be really careful with undermining your true value, because the value of what you've built here is only going up. They're talking to each other and they turned off the damn leaf blowers. They're walking here a little bit. Check this out. This is inside Pueblito Caribeño. I mean, you talk about what they're building here. It's just this idyllic little spot. Very cool. Yeah, I gotta show this to my Inner Circle more. I'm gonna see if I can get around more. Do the numbers, folks. That's what I'm asking you to do. Talk to people who are really investing here. Realtors are amazing. They're going to try to sell you on the highest ROI that you can get, and I get it. And they're not lying in many cases, I'm sure. They're telling you about an example, perhaps, that they had. But in a place the size of Vista Cana, with every day more and more and more product coming online, without the beach access, and with it being a residential community, I mean, look at if you live in a suburban town, how well does Airbnb do near you versus if you're in a city in an apartment in a spot that's tourist driven? Near beach, on beach are your best returns, bar none. This area you buy to live now or later, and you buy to get on the appreciation train, because by all projections, over the next 5, 10, 15 years, you probably are gonna do really well on value when you buy in the right places here in the Dominican Republic. Now, one of those places that I think is up and coming and is gonna be an absolute crazy spot in the next 10 to 15 years is this one. If you wanna learn more about Meaches and a project I invested in there, watch this video next, and I'll see you on the next one.